Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Andrea Kelly, the chair of the Land Use Committee. Tonight is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. Here at City Hall in room 205 at the table, we have with us at the table Councilor Tariq Lucas, who's the vice chair, Councilor Alan Mogovitz from Ward 6, Councilor Allison Leary from Ward 1, President Mark Laredo from Ward 7, and Randy Block from Ward 4. We may be getting a few more members, either in person. Okay, in person or online from the committee. Not from the committee, we have Councilor Getz joining us virtually. Staff members we have, our clerk here is Scott Matthews. We have Elisa Sandoval, Joe Iadenisi. Did you say Kat did join? Katie Wewell. And we may have some more staff joining us later. And Kat Kemet is here too. I will welcome anyone else as they come in later. And Jonah Temple from the Law Department is with us too. So we'll have good legal oversight. The first order of business. Oh, and we have now joining, Councilor Downs, who's on the committee from Ward 5, is on Zoom too. Our first order of business tonight is a request to review a request for a consistency ruling for 298-304 Elliott Street, where the petitioner is seeking a consistency ruling from the Commissioner of Inspectional Services due to changes between the approved plans and the as-built plans. These changes include the addition and configuration of retaining walls, patio, and a minor increase in the footprint of an accessory building. The commissioner is seeking the opinion of the Land Use Committee on this matter. It's not something we vote on, we just talk about it and give our input to the commissioner. Does anybody from planning want to say something about this, or should we just start chatting about it?
Sure, I actually have a presentation. I know this one's a little bit more.
Perfect, thank you, Katie, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Okay, so tonight we have the consistency ruling for 298-304 Elliott Street, which is governed by Special Permit 388-21. The petitioner is seeking a consistency ruling from the Commissioner of Inspectional Services due to changes between the approved plans and the as-built plans. So Special Permit 388-21, which governs the site, it granted relief to allow 4 single-family attached dwellings in 2 buildings, as well as several dimensional waivers for placement of the buildings, the side and rear setback requirements, as well as various parking dimensional waivers, as well as dormer relief. The site slopes approximately 10 feet from the front right corner of the lot to the rear left corner of the lot. The site is still under construction. However, the applicant has been seeking certificates of occupancy as each unit comes to completion. Another layer governing this property is that it is located in the Upper Falls Historic District. The project must comply with both plans approved by the Newton Upper Falls Historic District, as well as the City Council approved special permit plans from 2021. And it's the petitioner's responsibility that the same set of plans are submitted to each body that has review over this parcel. To orient everyone with the site, this is the special permit approved site plan. The 4 units are distributed amongst the principal building with 2 units and the carriage house with another 2 units. And then they also got approval to construct a detached garage in the southeastern corner of the lot. Access is provided via 2 curb cuts from Elliott Street with a circular driveway and another kind of drive to the back of the site, which leads to the garage and then a parking area behind this principal building. To refresh on the consistency process, as applicants begin to seek certificates of occupancy to close out the building permit, and for each unit, planning gathers the required materials per the special permit. This includes the as-built site plan and certificates of compliance. So the as-built site plan is kind of what it sounds like. It shows how the site was constructed or the as-built conditions. The planners then compare the as-built plan to building permit plans, and those were reviewed against the special permit plans earlier in the process in order to obtain the building permit. Planning also conducts a site visit to make sure there's nothing on the site that is not consistent with the approved plans. If there are any discrepancies, they are brought to the applicant's attention to remedy or seek approval for, and the two paths to sort of remedy any inconsistencies is based on sort of the threshold or I guess kind of intensity of the changes. The consistency ruling is applied for and either granted by the commissioner or is sent to land use for input by the commissioner, or it could be deemed an amendment to the site plan if the relief or if the changes kind of outweigh what was approved. An amendment would begin the special permit process over, and it may include new relief. And the three areas within this consistency request are 3 retaining walls at the southwest corner of the lot, a proposed patio in the side western yard, and reduced garage setbacks. So the most significant change from the special permit approved plan or in building permit plans are the construction of 3 retaining walls next to the carriage house. The wall heights range from 1.3 feet, and on some plans show 4 feet, but the applicant said that these walls will comply with the ordinance and will be less than 4 feet once the site is complete. And, this is one of the reasons the commissioner did send to land use to get input on, is that these 3 walls were not shown on the special permit plans. As you can see back here, it shows more of a natural slope. A patio there looks to be a wall right where my mouse is, but it's undimensioned, so we don't truly know kind of what was planned back there. And then these are some images of the 3 retaining walls. As you can see, the site is still under construction back here, but this is kind of the tallest wall, and then the 3 kind of, or the 2 other walls with that. And then as we move to the western boundary, there's also a rock retaining wall along the property line that it's unclear based on this plan where exactly that wall is, with kind of all the lines and busyness of the plan. So the commissioner is aware of this wall and the applicant will need to work with the commissioner on specifying that wall, because as you can see, it was not shown on the special permit approved plan nor a building permit plan, and shows more of a sloping topography. But with the lot line around here, it does look like it may protrude onto the abutter. Additionally, there is a patio that is proposed. The planning memo may have referred to the patio as built because there was a patio on site May 13th, and then the applicant removed the patio. So you can see this is from May 13th, and then to remedy some other inconsistencies with the site, they removed it. So are now seeking permission to add it. And then this is a picture of the rock retaining wall. It was near the other walls, and then this is from the front of the property, and this is from the rear of the property. So the last issue is that the garage setbacks were reduced. So they were originally approved for 5.5 feet. And then the as-built conditions showed 5.4 feet from the rear and 5 feet from the side property line. This does mean the garage increased in square footage by about 11 square feet. However, it doesn't have much impact on dimensional standards because FAR, which measures area, doesn't apply to single-family attached dwellings, so it's not a controlling dimension on this site. I think, some things may have been administratively allowed, if on their own, such as the garage and the patio, but because they're part of a list of multiple discrepancies, it's best to sort of bring them to committee and make sure, this would have been okay with the original special permit. So that is all we have, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weevil. It was really helpful to see what was submitted and photos of what was built. Before we start to discuss it, I want to welcome Councillor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8, who's joining us on Zoom, and also my colleague from Ward 3, Julia Maliki, who is not on the committee, but she is joining in on Zoom. Now I would like to take this topic to committee for conversation and discussion. Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love the property. It looks lovely from the front, and some of the work that they've done in the carriage from what I saw. I wanted to ask about the retaining walls. Like, why did they decide to put them in? It doesn't look like they really impact any of the abutters, right? They're not against the properties or anything. But I was just curious about that. And then, I was a little confused about why they built a patio and then removed it, and then they want to build it again. Is that right?
That's what I heard Ms. Weevil say.
Okay, so I'm wondering about that. And then, lastly, that rock retaining wall, it just seems really out of terms of the quality of the work. Kind of looks like a bunch of rocks were just dumped there, as opposed to, like, I thought it was going to be some kind of very nice rock wall that are often very beautifully and well done. It doesn't look finished to me, so I was curious about that. And also it's up against a butter, so I'd be concerned about that. Those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Antonio, I see your hand up. I presume that you would like to answer some questions on behalf of the petitioner. But if that's the case, I think it might make sense to hear other comments from the committee and then let you address all of them. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. So with respect to the patio, I see that as nothing. The patio is fine, consistent. Same thing with the garage. We're talking about 11 square feet and a maximum side back reduction of 6 inches, which is nothing. So I think those are consistent. Retaining walls, that's the troubling one. I understand that one of the long retaining wall could be on the neighbor's property, and that's not before us. That will have to be resolved later. But the retaining walls, I don't understand the need for them, one, so hopefully the petitioner can answer those questions. But it says in the memo, they range from 1.3 to 3.2 feet, which is greater than 4 feet, which requires a special permit. And it says they are not requesting an amendment to the special permit. This is a consistency ruling. So on a matter of process, I don't know why we would need to look at this now, unless they agree to take them down, and then there's no need for a consistency ruling on that. And that is where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Arredo.
So I agree with my colleagues. I have no problem with the patio, no problem with the garage. I'm glad, Ms. Weewell, you brought that to us. A great idea just to get it all in one package. I'm confused about the retaining wall piece a little bit. I'm not troubled by side ones because they don't seem to impact anyone. They're really on the property if they want to scale their land a little bit differently, fine, but could you put up the picture where there was, I think Councilor Larry referred it to, where there's a lot of rock and it would look like trees were next to a trench? Maybe that's just my ill-informed, yeah, so is this is this their property?
May I do see the applicant with his hand up? I think he should speak to it, but to me, when you look at this survey, the property line is where my cursor is, and it looks like the wall is over that point. So I
Go
think
back
the
to the picture though, that's what I'm really troubled by. Sorry.
And then we will hear from the applicant.
So the wooden fence, that's from the applicant petitioner?
I believe so. I think it was installed after this site plan was submitted as part of final kind of landscaping. So we don't have anything showing the fence on the applicant's property, but we would expect to get something.
That strikes me as was that the way it looked originally with that level of grade change?
So this was never, the site did have some slope and grade changes, but this rock wall was never contemplated. It was meant to be more of a natural slope. You can, if we zoom to the topography, you can kind of see the grade goes down in the direction of my mouse. And a previous stockade fence was on the property. It's in that light gray. But nothing as far as a wall was planned for this side lot line.
I guess I'll leave it at this, I've got some concerns about that. Fairly serious concerns, looks like those trees would get endangered. Again, it just frankly looks like somebody's property site is overhanging the next neighbor's site. I'll leave it at that. I think that's what we're trying to discourage in the city, not encourage. I'll let it go there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other initial comments from land use committee members? If not, let's go to Antonio so he can address some of these questions and concerns we have. And I see hands of other councilors up. I will get to you next. We're in committee at this point. Antonio.
Good evening. Could you also, Christy Dennis is going to come on as well, and she's the architect with us, is going to show some of the drawings. So good evening, councilors. I'm Antonio Martin Samarjasi. Thank you for those who voted unanimously to approve this amazing development 3 years ago, allowing the preservation and restoration of this beautiful historic home and retaining this single family feel while the funding of the 4 units helped to actually restore the entire property. And recently when I was talking with Councilor Downs and some other councilors as well about this as a very successful example of how to develop thoughtfully while preserving historic structures. So today we have a few items that you guys saw regarding the consistency ruling. Currently the status is that unit 1 and 2 are built and done, and then the outside of 3 and 4 is complete, and there's some finished grading in the back that has to be done at the rear and restored. Christy Dennis will from Innovative Collaborations will review some of the architecture and engineering drawings that were submitted and talk about the walls that were on the drawings, but they didn't actually have top and bottom of walls, and they show the grades right up against them, but they weren't, Joe Porter didn't fully label them exactly, but so she'll show some of that stuff, and I can address questions of exactly what was built on site, because I performed the construction control as the architect myself with some of the things that the contractors did.
Before we move to Christy, Antonio, you'd had your hand up for quite a while. Did you want to respond specifically to some of the comments that were made, or did you want to read that introduction and move to Christy and get to answering our questions later? That's exactly the order, because I think the drawings are very important to be able to see, what drawings were submitted to planning and what was submitted to historic to actually clear up some of the
maybe, ambiguity.
Okay, let's move on. Christy, do you need to share your
Hi.
screen?
That would be great, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, is that working?
No.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. And I won't belabor this because I know the main interest is in the sidewall. But the other retaining walls are back in this corner. So if I could just quickly go through, oh, I'm so sorry. Try one more time. I have a problem, but I gotta move these controls so I get it. Okay. So this is just to clarify a little bit about what the existing condition was in the back of the carriage house. This is a photo showing that there was a walkout that was existing, that was the existing plan. As Katie noted, there weren't dimensions in the sense of top and bottom of wall were not literally noted on this existing site plan. As you can see, 158 up to 162. This existing kind of rock slope is something that was there, 158 up to 160, somewhere between 160 and 161 was on this side. So this was an existing condition. And then when we submitted the plans for first to Upper Falls Historic Commission, we showed a lower walkout patio here. You can see here with double doors there, that opening's there now, and then an upper patio here. So the intent to have a kind of a stepping change in grade from the initial walkout up to an upper level patio was something that was submitted to historic. The plans that were submitted to a special permit included these two as well. This is the elevation that was reviewed and approved by land use at the time. And then when we submitted for a building permit, this is the Joe Porter drawing that Katie was referring to, which again, showed the 158 up to the 162 at this side. Now that drawing neglected to show this a step at this patio here, which if you look at this, it doesn't show that other step. It shows a much taller wall. So what happened during construction, which Antonio can speak to more, was the intention to create the stepping that we had here to begin with. And so this drawing here shows that as-built that Katie was referring to with the 3 walls, and then the walkout with a shorter wall here, and then a patio here with a shorter wall. And as Katie noted, it doesn't really matter. We have rough grade there now because it's still under construction, but rough grade currently measures about 36. The intention is that it'll be about 30 inches finished at that highest wall. And then, as Katie mentioned, these are drawings that were submitted to the Upper Falls Commission, and they approved the walls. In theory, there's some question about the makeup of those walls, which I don't think we need to get to. This is similar to what Katie showed about photos from the front. And then we also looked at this from the rear, from Ohio Avenue. This is what you can see of the carriage house between these two existing structures there. And again, drawings submitted to them. The red line represents approximate intention for finish grade at those walls. So this one will be completely buried from view, and that one even more. And then there's a drawing we created after the review with historic, because they had concern that with a fence not in place, you might be able to see these walls. So we looked at the as-built for the properties behind, so that we could create a diagrammatic site section through to look at whether somebody from Ohio Avenue could in fact see these walls or not. So that's where those stand. I'll let Antonio speak more to the rock wall, because that's something that happened during construction.
Sure, I'll start with this one. On the west side, thank you, Christy. On the west side, you can see the grade. If you look at the blue car to the right, and if you look at the excavator, that's the difference, the existing difference in grade. And this is when there was a concern. It was evident during construction that there was the grade was so steep between the side lot and between this one. The contractor brought up about the erosion that was happening, that they were stabilizing constantly. And then when they took the fence down, there was concern about the stability of this extremely, it's a 5-foot change in grade within a short distance. And so they were concerned about that. And so they suggested to dig down what the excavator is doing here, about 1 foot, and then just embed some of the rocks in the existing grade to stabilize it so that they would keep the existing grade the way it was, but it would hold back some of the erosion and prevent, some problems that they were concerned about. So if you look at the next picture, this is when they first started, and they dug down about 1 foot of the existing grade from 5 feet, and then just they placed those rocks in there across there to try to stabilize the site and try to reinforce the wall, essentially better than the existing sloping grade that was there. I did construction control, and you see that red line that was right there. I came out specifically to make sure that they did not cross the property line, and they ran this from Joe Porter's engineering stakes from one side all the way to here. And so I personally, as the construction control architect, was there and witnessed that they did not, go beyond the property line with this stabilizing the existing major change in grade. And so that was that piece. The 3 retaining walls that were in the back, as Christy said, the real intention was to more closely align with the approved historic drawings, which were the 2-tiered instead of the one big one, which we thought worked out the more intention to work this with the original intent of that carriage house being a historic structure. That one big wall that was approved in the permit was not as well. I've been on one of the historic boards for a while. I'm on boards in Newton, and so we try to do things that actually are successful and work well. And so we thought that leaning closer to the historic, us 2 architects thought that was the best thing to do. And then those were the 2. Was there other questions that I missed?
About the patio.
Councilor Laredo, do you feel that they answered your question? And Councilor Leary, about the intention of those 3 perpendicular walls? What I'm hearing is you made these changes on site during construction because you thought it was more compatible with the original 2-tiered patio idea. So are those 3 retaining walls each at a different level, providing outdoor space to units, or can you explain that a little more to us?
Yeah, we can look back at the historic or the final drawing. Either one is they're all essentially the same, with some differences. So this is the final as-built section, and the patio that's up on the top level is that door that leads out to there that was shown on the historic and on the planning, and the door at the bottom was the lower patio. Those are both shown. And just in question is exactly how the walls were built. Were they built a little taller, a little shorter? Were they built a little forward? And as Katie noted, Joe Porter didn't label them particularly in the drawing. He showed them physically, and they're in section, they're in elevation. But in his actually site plan, he didn't actually label retaining wall, but they're shown in multiple drawings so that it wouldn't be possible not to have them. They existed in the beginning because there was an existing walkout of this carriage house. And when we rebuilt it, we had to make them as well. And so we thought the minor changes that we did in making them stepped, they weren't shown stepped in the drawing. We stepped them because we thought that was more elegant. And then we digressed from the building permit plan and went back to the historic one for the way these 2 on the left, wall number 1 and wall number 2 are more equally tiered and not a big giant wall.
I would love it if someone could pull up the photograph of the 3 walls that are built now without the finished grade. And what you're saying, Antonio, is that these 3 walls were presented and were approved, but I was hearing the planning department say they were not presented or planned, that these were later additions. Which of those versions is true?
I think if you look at the drawings, you could judge for yourself. If you want to look at, if Christy wants to pull it up, they're there. They just, I think as a planner, they're not, if we go to, this is historic. You can see this, the elevation shows very clearly that there's 3 tiered on there because there's a walkout down below. This was the historic one. If we go to
It's historic, though. Are you saying that was part of the packet that the land use committee looked at and approved also?
Yes, but I'll show the next one too. Land use did review all this with us in the beginning, but this one down below, this is the actual Joe Porter's drawing. And so if we zoom in, you can see that he drew 2 retaining walls on either side of that walkout patio, and he's got 158, 159, 160. But because he did not label them in plan, they're obviously shown in elevation, but because he didn't label them, then, as a reviewer on the planning, she says that they're not there. As an architect, I'm like, yes, they're there. I can see them, but I understand if they're not fully labeled, that could be hard to figure out. One, it doesn't say top of the wall, but when people make a mistake, Joe made a mistake on the drawing to actually show it. You can see on the left side, it goes 158, 159, and it's dying into the wall because that's the retaining wall. And on the right side, all those contours are dying into that retaining wall because that's a retaining wall too. So all of the essentiality, this was in here, but this was not the only drawing. There's like 34 drawings, including the elevations and sections that show them as well.
Okay, thank you. People who have spoken, Councilor Lucas and then Councilor Block.
Okay, sir, my question was, if your retaining walls are within 25 feet of one another and they exceed 4 feet in height combined, it will require a special permit. So my question was, how come you're not asking to amend the special permit for additional zoning relief for the retaining walls?
I'm not sure the legality of that. But when I went to the commissioner, he said because they're perpendicular, that is not accurate. But I'll lean on what he has to say. He had no issue with these perpendicular retaining walls. I think I don't know the law about this, but he said it had to do with something about being I think parallel to the property line or something like that. Not this way, but you guys may know more about that than I do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could I quickly just also say, I don't believe the total change in grade is greater than 4 feet. We can take a look at that with the finished grades.
No, the retaining walls combined.
I understand. I mean across the site from the top of from the highest point to the lowest point. We'll take a look at that now.
All right, can we hear from planning on that, if the retaining walls are in fact greater than 4 feet in height?
Yeah, so I reviewed with the commissioner and he did not think these were a combination of retaining walls. I don't recall the effective date of the new retaining wall ordinance, so I'm not sure, if they filed this before that took effect or how that plays into it. They could be close. But I'm reading the language of the ordinance now. So it says when a combination of retaining walls are within 25 feet. So I do think combination is the key word here. And it sounds like Mr. Margassi also ran this by Anthony Ciccarello and ISD, and Anthony does not believe these are a combination of retaining walls.
All right, thanks a lot.
Series is another word that's often applied to retaining walls. If there's a series of them and they're, for instance, on this slope, if they all add up to more than 4 feet high, that's another way of looking at it, which is frankly how I'm looking at it right now. Councilor Block.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion, more so than I expected. I just wanted to agree with Councilor Lucas and Councilor Laredo regarding the patio and the garage. Those changes are de minimis and therefore consistent with the plan. These retaining walls don't appear to be properly labeled. They're significant enough, it seems to me, whether they add up to 4 feet or less, or whether it's necessary to consider these for a special permit or not. It seems to me that something has to be amended here. Some drawings, some submission has to be amended, and I wouldn't consider what's happened with the retaining walls consistent with what was submitted. So that's as far as I want to go with this. Thank you.
Thanks for your input. Councilor Downs, let's hear from you.
Hi, thank you. And this is my ward, and I've been watching the work happening across the street from Bettina's every time I go over there, which is fairly regularly. They have an excellent lunch, as well as excellent pastries. So take note, they're on vacation until the end of the month, but go. I also have no concern about the patio or the garage. As far as the retaining walls, if you look at the original drawings, I don't know how you can preserve the carriage house without either filling that opening where the patio on the right here on this drawing is. You have to somehow support that part of the building, and that's in part what those retaining walls do. I do remember approving this special permit. It was not this term. It was last term or the term before, but it was definitely not this term. And I remember the retaining wall zoning ordinance, which I believe does not apply retroactively, was passed this term. So let's make sure that we're applying the zoning law that actually would have applied at the time of this special permit. Having said all of that, if this were to come to us now and the plans were detailed the way that I would have liked them to be when they first came to us, and I have to admit, we were so delighted that this would be, not destroyed by neglect at the time that it came to us, because it was in really poor shape and was likely to fall down if Mr. Smargiassi and his team hadn't come up with an idea to preserve it, make it look pretty much the way it was. I think most of our discussion was, if I recall right, around the driveways and safety of the driveways and total impervious surface. If I could be reminded of the impervious before and after the now 3 patios go in, that would be my only concern about this. But otherwise, if this was the permit that had come to us then, which is the criteria that we would use now in the consistency ruling, I would definitely still approve this, because I want our beautiful old Victorians to be preserved, not left to rot, because it's so difficult to work with this city.
Thank you. We have the hands up of a few of our colleague counselors. Counselor Getz?
Sorry, I'm eating salad. I just wanted to say a few things. In terms of the effective date of the new ordinance is June 1st, but I concur with what Councilor Downs just said about what was in effect at the time that this was permitted. I think that's, that's the way I would interpret it. But that's, just, I wanted to add that information to the conversation. But the one thing that I was concerned about was the border retaining wall and the amount of bearing of the abutters trees. I think that probably Councilor Maliki will be speaking to that, but it just was a little disheartening to see that amount of grade and then just the actual amount of fill that was being pushed up against those established trees. And then lastly, in the memo, it was saying that the Upper Falls Historic District Commission reviewed the 3 walls and approved them. However, the commission required a change in materials used to construct the walls. And apparently the petitioner is appealing this decision to the MAPC, which they have a right to do. But I just didn't know if that, was a part of the conversation in terms of, and I actually like to know, and I can check with the commission to find out what was their request of this petitioner in terms of the change of materials. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor Getz. My guess is that the use of concrete block as a material for those walls might be something that the Upper Falls Historic Commission might prefer something else, perhaps rock, stone walls, natural stone walls, or perhaps even face those concrete walls with stone facing. So we're going to leave that all up to the Historic Commission. I would support the Historic Commission making that suggestion. Councilor Maliki, you have patiently held your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, so as Councilor Getz said, I am, and predicted, I am going to talk about the tree effect here because along the property line, the petitioner or representative mentioned needing to make it stable, but it seems like their own work made it unstable. And that doesn't seem like a good rationalization for burying trees. And it looks like they buried not only trees on their own, or at least one tree on their own property, but the root zone of the abutters trees. And that is not good. I looking in the NewGov, I see a tree permit, but there's I don't have the application that went into it. So I don't know what they were saying that they would preserve versus trees that would have been subject to replacement inches. So I don't know if they can speak to that, but and this applies also to the at least one tree where you saw the side of the house and that tiered series of walls. It seemed like one of those pictures showed a tree on the property with roots being buried, and that's like one of the worst things you can do along with cutting roots. So I guess I don't see the rationale for not having left the slope alone.
Is that it, Councilor Maliki?
Thanks.
Thank you. Lots for Commissioner Ciccarello to think about here. Councilor Lobovitz.
So the wall is, they said, is to prevent erosion down that slope onto the adjacent property, is that correct?
That's what
So
was, yes.
What's that?
I would question that. That's
Well,
exactly right.
let's make that assumption just for a second. What are the, I mean, I can imagine, but maybe somebody's more knowledgeable than I can speak to other alternatives to prevent erosion other than a wall and digging up that whole area and potentially killing these trees. Did anybody consider other alternatives to preventing the erosion?
That might be a good question for Antonio and Christie.
Would you like me to chime in?
Yes.
Oh, sure. So I am not an arborist at all. I'm an architect, so I don't have that. I would weigh in, have other people weigh in about that. But we did not want to disturb or cut down any of the trees and propose any sort of crazy thing like a full retaining wall. And the thought process was in that one tree location, which is in front of us, which is the place where I believe they put stones on the right and left of it, but already the dirt was like 3 foot on our original, inspections and stuff. You can see here in this one, it's 161 on one side of the tree, and then it's 159 at the bottom of the tree. It's already 2 feet up the side of the tree. So they put stones on either side in this one case. In the rest, I think there was no trees, or maybe there was one. I can't remember exactly, but they tried to do the best they could to really just stop the erosion without destroying any of these mature trees that were there. That was the idea. If anybody has a better idea, we are more than open to that. We try to do beautiful work and amazing things, on our projects. And so this was the solution that we tried to come up with just to do the right thing.
So the answer is there was no alternative
Considered. Antonio, did your project use a landscape architect or just a civil engineer?
Just a civil engineer.
There's the problem. Guilty as charged. Councilor Lobovitz, is that it for you for now?
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Leary?
Could we pull up the photo of that rock wall again?
Do you want our photo or do you want to go back to Katie?
I'd like the whatever the image is, the
Beautiful.
image of the rock wall and the trees. If you have any other images, that would be helpful too.
There were the two next to each other photos.
I think it may be Katie who has the better photo for that.
Come to her last, because it's her board.
Let's do other slides.
I'll let her share.
Oh, yeah. Complete, I was complete right here. Yes. That looks
Is
like
that-
more than 4 feet.
Yeah.
That is more than 4 feet.
Is that finished?
No.
I mean, is that still under construction?
Antonio, that's for you.
Which part?
Is the rock wall still under construction?
The rock wall was not under construction anymore. The dirt that's in front where the retaining units are, that was all supposed to be covered, at least to the property line, you know, with some sort of ground cover. But you can see the existing grade is continuing, like say the bottom of the existing rock that's there is the property line. It continues to slope down another, 2 or 3 feet. It continues to do that.
Mhm. Well, I think some of the suggestions that came up about maybe having a landscape architect look at that, but I still don't, I'm also concerned about that rock wall and stormwater runoff there too, and creating more erosion. And I'm not a landscape architect, but we do have one in the room. But I still don't understand why, using during this construction, like the straw bales and maybe planting grasses or, different kinds of plantings and having it slope down. And yeah, it would take a little time to grow in and you'd have to manage that. But that seems like it could be a viable option. I also completely share Councilor Malky's concerns about the trees and how they're impacted. Considering how beautiful the rest of the project is, it seems incongruous to have this rock wall like that, and the possible damage to the trees, which I'm very concerned about, and I'm still concerned about stormwater runoff. And I would also say the Historic Commission is going to talk about the walls, but I absolutely see what they mean about that. Those rock walls are very commercial looking and really out of place on such a beautiful property such as this. So those are my comments. Thank you.
If we can keep that photo up for a moment too, that we just had of the slope and the quote-unquote rock wall, thank you very, very much. 2 more people want to speak, but I'm just going to pipe in here about this area that we're looking at because I am a landscape architect and people have been asking what else could be done. A better constructed stone wall than what I would call a pile of rubble. It does not look like it is retaining anything effectively would work. I think that's going to have to all be worked out with the commissioner and surveys to know whose land you're on. This amount of slope that we're looking at on the right photo is very dry and rocky and too steep really to do much vegetation. I even think it would be hard to get ground cover established on that. And as Councilor Malky pointed out, it appears that the work that was done above caused a lot of this. So I do think it might behoove the developer, the team, the architect, maybe get a landscape architect on board to find another solution to this. The concerns over the health of those trees and the runoff and the erosion are very real, and I think that's something we will probably pass on to the ISD commissioner. Councilor Downs, you've had your hand up for some time. We have another hand at the table. Do you want to be a wrap-up person or would you like to speak now?
I just have a question now. The Historic Commission's jurisdiction is of what is visible from the public way.
Yes.
And while we might want a more lovely facing on the retaining walls than concrete block, the real question is that visible from the public way? And if it is not, then I would argue that is not under the Historic Commission's jurisdiction, nor are we in the aesthetics business at land use.
Ms. Wewell, would you like to address the visibility of those walls from the street?
Yeah, and I saw Attorney Temple had his hand up too. I think we learned this morning that anything like landscaping or fencing is seen as temporary. So if you act as if those weren't there, you would be able to see the walls from the street. But I know they, reviewed this and it's within their jurisdiction. So I don't know if Attorney Temple has anything to add.
Yeah, that's correct. The local historic district commission has already reviewed this and determined that it is visible from the roadway. I can see the petitioner there shaking his head. He has appealed that determination, and that's currently pending right now.
Correct. So does that?
So not really under our jurisdiction either,
No.
because now it's gone on appeal? Is that correct?
Yes, but it is under the local historic district commission's jurisdiction from our point of view. And we will defend that decision.
And we don't have anything to do with that, but it's helpful for us to understand the whole process and the players involved. So I think that answers your question. Councilor Laredo.
I'm gonna try to wrap it up if we could. Look, it seems to me that this is overall, there's a really good project. I think you're hearing that consistently. Your other changes are not an issue. So you got one issue here. Seems to me that you're hearing from a number of us that we have concerns about the consistency. This is not our final solution. We have zero say on the materials because that's for the Historic Commission. But it sounds like you could come up with some solutions here that would actually make this better. And if you can do that, I think that would be good for you. I think it'd be good for the project. I think that would make this go more smoothly and you can finish up. So that's my strong suggestion here is you go and get the appropriate professional to give you the necessary guidance, to come up with a solution that works. And I think then, I can't speak for everyone, but I would be comfortable with saying, sure, that's consistent, you're solving a problem. I'll leave it at that.
Just to follow up on what President Laredo said, I think I'm hearing from everyone who's spoken about it that the patio and the garage footprint are de minimis and we're not concerned about them. Most of our concerns are around the wall, the planting and the erosion, and this is what we'll pass on to the ISD Commissioner. Councilor Lobovitz, you had your hand
One
up.
last.
Yes,
one
please,
last
go
point.
ahead.
Can we go back to that picture that we were looking at before? So the walls, and
I'm sorry, the wall picture?
yes, the one we were just looking at,
Yes.
The stone wall.
yes.
Yeah, there we go.
So, Councilor Block and I visited this site today. And there was a little boy in the window, not that window, but one in the
Around the
back,
corner.
if you remember, who
Yes, I
kept
do.
waving to us.
Yes.
This little boy, adorable little boy. And this made me think about the safety. So if he easily could come out of that building, that home, and walk around there,
Right. It's
God
true.
forbid he should fall down that slope, and I think I would just point that out, that there may be a safety issue, especially regarding children in that area. And I think I would like them to think about that.
I think
That's
that's an excellent point. We've seen that with other projects and that's something that ISD will think about. Councilor Maliki, we're trying to wrap this up. Do you have one last quick word you'd like to get in?
Still puzzled, wondering what was there before, because obviously you had trees, you had a big change in grade and probably not erosion, and it's the trees themselves that are helping to retain the soil. Not too late to get an arborist. I'd like to point out that the recent strengthening of the tree ordinance would have absolutely required an arborist in this situation, and that arborist would have provided a tree protection plan and planting plan and could have avoided this type of situation. Thanks.
Todd, do you have a last comment or response quickly to any of this? I see your hand has been up. You can go ahead and unmute if you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, first of all,
Yourself first of all for us, just first and last name and address, please.
yeah, Todd Healy, 44 Erie. My wife Johanna and I recently bought that property, and we'll be talking about that probably later on this call. I just wanted to mention regarding the trees, we have been talking to a lot of arborists regarding the trees on our property and preserving them and determining how to remove them and what we should do moving forward. And a lot of it comes down to whether these trees are invasive species or not. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Looking at that photo of those trees, has that diligence been done, whether those trees are actually old growth trees that kind of belong right there, or are they invasive species? That's all I really wanted to say, because we're dealing with that on our property.
Thank you. And as Councilor Maliki just pointed out, it looks like those trees are largely responsible for holding up that extremely steep slope. I think that we have covered this for very thoroughly. I'm not sure we've ever spent an hour on a consistency ruling before. I hope we don't have to do that very often.
We're gonna make the same comment.
So we're going to move on to some of the special permit applications. The first one we have before us tonight is number 291-24. It's a request to allow a dormer exceeding 50% and to allow a dormer with an uninterrupted wall plane at 44 Erie Ave, where we'll probably see Todd again.
All right, good evening, Joe O'Donoghue from Current Planning. I'll be covering 44 Erie Ave. And there's only a single item of relief required for this, and that is to allow a dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below. There are 4 criteria to consider. The first is that the specific site is an appropriate location for the dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below. The second is that the dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below, as developed and operated, will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The third, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below. And the fourth, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the construction of a dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below. So the property is located to the west of the Newton Highlands Village Center. It itself is in the SR2 single residence 2 zone, also in multi-residence transit, but it has not yet opted in, and it doesn't have too much of an effect on this overall petition, because no matter which zone you are in the city of Newton, the same rules apply as far as dormers. However, it is worth pointing out this location because you definitely do have a decent variety of different architectural structures, different types of houses, but a lot coming from that late 19th century, early 20th century period, being close to the Newton Highlands Village Center, and a lot of those properties are historic. Definitely a lot of zones there as well, but like I said, the dormers are not particularly different. Depending on the zone. As you look around the neighborhood, definitely with a lot of homes that pre-exist, there are some that are very clearly in excess of the 50% of the wall plane below, some that are a little bit borderline. But I just wanted to point out some in the neighborhood that do have dormers that are close to or exceed that 50% of the length of the wall below. The one on the bottom left is just over across the street, and some other ones are from elsewhere within the Newton Highlands Village Center area as well. This is a look at the site plan. The majority of the project for the petitioners is going to be by right renovations, and then the real addition of the project is going to be for them to add that dormer on the Erie Avenue facing side on kind of the northwest side of the house on the right side as you're facing it from the street. Otherwise, all that work in the rear, that remodeling, is going to be conducted by right. This is a look at where that work is going to be. That's how it'll appear from the street. Something that's worth noting, actually maybe we'll see it a little bit better from the right elevation. It is a little bit higher than that jog out there, but is much lower than the overall roof line, so there's no required additional relief here. But something that's worth noted that I think you can see pretty well from this picture is that the total length of the right facade of the house is about 60 feet. And then this dormer here that they are proposing is about 11.6 feet. And while it's not 50% of the length of the whole wall, they're only able to count the length of the wall directly below, which is 19.1 feet. So this is just around 2 feet in excess of what they would be able to have by right. But because they're only able to count that shortened wall plane there, because the property jogs out, or because the facade jogs out towards the west, further to the right as you're facing it from the street, that length of wall doesn't count at all for them, and that takes away from the length of the dormer that they would be able to have to see any of the proposed work from the left elevation. Something worth noting that you can't really see too much in the elevation, as most of this work is being done by right, that I think is important to bring up as well is, and the petitioners can detail this a little bit further, having to live with the current conditions of the house. But like many houses that are historic, there are some aspects of it that don't comply with modern building code. And for them, the stairs up to their attic don't allow enough height clearance or enough width. So these renovations are going to allow them to have enough head clearance at the top of the stairs from their second floor up to their attic, and allow them to widen those stairs in compliance with building code, which is something that planning definitely recommends, changes that comply with building code, even if it is discretionary. What the overall impact of that project is from a planning perspective, it is definitely good that the petitioners are advancing something that could potentially make things safer for people to come up into their attic. But that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Joe. We'll see if the petitioner has anyone here for the petitioner want to speak.
My name is Robert Fizik, resident in Hines. I'm the architect for the Healy's. And I just wanted to talk to the reason why we're here. We're here is because the existing stair was 26 inches wide, included winders at the top, hatch at the top, ended at the back part of the house, which doesn't have sufficient headroom to be even usable, habitable space. If I had any other choice of where to put a stair within the configuration of the house, which it looks like a very big house, it's a good size house, but it's actually a 3-bedroom house, and the configuration of the floor plates are, standard positions in bedrooms, hallways. There was really no other place to put it that made any sense except over the main stair. And it's going to be really nice and healthy and very practical solution that'll still look great from the outside.
Thank you, Mr.
I didn't see
President.
I know I provided some 3D imagery. I don't know.
Ms. Wewell, do you have copies of those 3D renderings or images? Do we need them?
Yeah, I actually totally forgot to provide those, but I can pull that up.
Yeah, I think we tend to rely on the elevations. 3Ds aren't always super accurate, but we can share them.
We're okay for now. Thank you for mentioning it, though. Okay,
As a Ward 6 counselor, I'm gonna, what's
We
my,
need to open the public.
oh, I'm sorry.
okay,
Apologize.
we are opening the public hearing. Would you like to make a motion to open the
I move to open the public hearing.
public hearing is open. And you are the Ward 6 counselor, and when it comes to making a motion and closing the public hearing, I'm sure you'll do that. Do you have any comments you want to make about it before then?
Yes, again, Councilor Block and I visited the site. I think it's a beautiful home. My understanding is that they want to create an office space up there, or at least have access to make it usable. It's really unobtrusive. It's, as was pointed out, it's very consistent with the neighborhood. It keeps the basic home intact. And very much in favor of moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lovett. Councilor Lucas, was that a?
No, I don't have a, no.
Councilor Leary?
It's a lovely project, and I'm glad they're doing it. I think your architects do a great job.
I agree. I agree too. Councilor Lovett, let's have a motion from you to close the public.
I'd like to move that we close the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one is opposed, I'm guessing. See no one opposed. And you'd like to make a motion to approve the
Well, I'd
project.
like to say something.
What's that?
It's the property owner,
Oh,
Mr. Todd.
Thank you all.
oh, okay, I didn't see
That's
it.
what I want to say. I want to say thank you, all of you.
It's the voice of Oz.
Please.
I didn't see you again, Todd, thank you.
Once more,
You can thank us at the very end.
I move to approve the project.
Great, let's see the findings and conditions.
Okay. Here are the findings that the specific site is an appropriate location for a dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below, as the proposed addition will enable the site to conform with building codes, and the dwelling will continue to maintain the appearance and scale of other dwellings built in the late 19th century, which are common in the area. Secondly, that the dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below, as developed and operated, will not adversely affect the neighborhood, as nonconformities are common given the development of most lots predates the zoning ordinance. Thirdly, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below, as no changes to the site circulation or parking will occur. And lastly, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved in the construction of a dormer exceeding 50% of the length of the wall below, as the proposed scope of work is similar to that for by right projects. And then we just have the standard conditions.
Thank you very much. Let's take a vote to approve the motion made by Councilor Lovett. All in favor, say, do you need to do it by roll call? Yeah, you're right, go.
Councilor Block,
Aye.
Councilor Downs,
Aye.
Councilor Farrow, Councilor Kelly,
Aye.
Councilor Leary,
Aye.
Councilor Lovett,
Aye.
Councilor Lucas. Aye. Councilor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. You're welcome, Todd.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Fisher.
Robert.
Thank you.
Keep my mouth shut this time.
Okay, moving on. The next one is number 292-24. It's a request to alter and extend the non-conforming side setback and to further reduce non-conforming open space at 16 Brayland Ave. This is also in Ward 6. Let's hear from planning. Kat, I think that's you, correct?
Yes, one moment. Hopefully everyone could see that. My name is Kat Kemet. I'm a planner for the city. This is petition number 292/24, a special permit for 16 Brayland Avenue. For this project, the petitioner proposes to construct a one-story attached garage addition. This will further extend the non-conforming side setback and further reduce the non-conforming open space requiring special permit relief. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the proposed addition, which will further extend the non-conforming front setback and further decreased non-conforming open space will be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. This is an aerial view of the neighborhood, which is in Newton Center. Most parcels on the street are zoned multi-residence 1 with the option to opt into MRT, though this property and most of the ones nearby have not done so yet. And there are also some parcels zoned for business use and public use. The area has a mix of residential uses, some businesses, and across the street is the Newton Center MBTA station. The site currently consists of a single-family dwelling with several nonconformities, including substandard amount of open space, front setback, and side setback. The petitioner is proposing to construct a one-story attached garage. As part of that work, the existing nonconforming left setback, which is 6 feet currently, will be further reduced to 3.8 feet, which requires special permit relief. The property has an existing nonconforming open space right now of 44.2%, where 50% is the minimum required. And this work will decrease the already nonconforming open space to 38.2%, so that requires relief. FAR is proposed at 0.52, where 0.43 currently exists. So that is okay because up to 0.57 is allowed by right. The existing driveway on the right side of the dwelling will be removed and grass and plantings added in its place. A new curb cut and paved driveway will be added on the left side of the building connecting to the new garage here. And a walkway will be added connecting the sidewalk in front of the dwelling to the new front entry stairs. This is the north elevation, which is the front. This setback will stay the same as it is currently. The front porch and entryway will be slightly reoriented with the steps moved from the left side here to the front. So it will present a bit more as a front entrance. And the driveway will be moved to this left-hand side to connect to that new attached garage. This is the east elevation where the side setback will be reduced from 6 feet to 3.8 feet. So the work will be done here. This is the south elevation, the rear. This will look much the same with a few tweaks, including new windows and the removal of a chimney, but no changes to the setback on this side. And this is the view of the west side. The setback will also remain the same with pretty minimal work visible from here. So overall, the planning department is not concerned with the request to further extend the non-conforming side setback and the decrease in the non-conforming open space. The property was constructed in 1894, and it's pretty common for historic homes in this area to have similar non-conforming elements. So staff believe the proposed work is likely to have a minimal impact on the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kemet. Is there somebody here for the petitioner who would like to speak or present?
So hi, I'm the owner.
Oh.
And the architect is also on the line. I don't think we have anything to add, but we're here in case you have any questions.
What's your name?
Elisa Van Dam.
Aha, great. So no presentation.
I'm sorry, I had a hard time unmuting.
So no presentation, you're just here to answer.
Well, Carrie, my architect, is available to do a presentation if you'd like.
What's the name again? So we can.
Carrie Murray.
Oh, she's in.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Carrie.
sorry, I had a hard time unmuting. I'm happy to present or just add a few comments with regard to, looking to keep the massing of the new proposed garage minimal for the area, preserve a lot of elements existing to the house as they are. We're not looking to demolish any portions of the home to construct the garage, and just looking to maintain as many of the other setbacks as we can for the property, especially the front line, things like that.
Great. Any comments that you think planning missed that are important, feel free to speak, or if there are questions that need to be answered, thank you both for being here. Questions, comments from the committee? Whoa, let's go around the table. Councilor Block.
I just wanna compliment you on your garden.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Come see the back.
Well, we did take a little peek, and that looks really nice too.
No trespassing.
No trespassing, of course not. This plan has been created very sensitively. We spoke to one of your neighbors who endorsed this project, so obviously people are looking forward to this. So, we appreciate the care that you've taken on this.
Thank you. We're fortunate to have wonderful neighbors.
Thank you. We'll hear more comments from the committee, but we will open the public hearing so that we can also hear from the public. So the public hearing is open. Councilor Laredo, did you have your hand up?
Oh, no.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, Councilor Leary did. I thought everyone at the table had their hand up.
Yeah, I also thought it was a lovely project, very well done. I love that you're putting the green space where the driveway is now and moving it over. The only question I had is the reduction in the side setback to 3.8 feet, and if you're a butter or neighbor, how that would impact them at all?
Well, you know that we're next to 15 Chase Street with the walls that are.
Yeah.
Oh,
Castle.
okay.
Call it the castle.
Oh, okay.
They wrote a
We're next to
letter.
the castle,
We've got it.
precisely.
Okay,
They wrote a letter in support though of you.
They did, yes, and I appreciate that.
okay, never mind.
Councilor Lubovitz, I'm going counterclockwise.
So, as Councilor Block mentioned, we visited the site. I think it's an enhancement to already beautiful home and to the neighborhood. The orientation of the door toward the street actually is more consistent with the neighborhood than the current configuration. So when the time comes, I will move to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas?
This is a very good project. I have no issues with the design. However, there is a telephone pole in the berm, and I just want to hear from planning on this one. Did you look into this by putting the driveway on this side of the home? Because it looks like that telephone pole is awfully close to where the driveway is gonna go.
Are you asking Ms. Kemet if they think that's an issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's awfully close. I don't know,
Or Carrie can answer that too.
so did you mute?
Carrie's.
Sorry, I'm having unmuting issues. I do think that based on the site plan, that we will miss it. And I feel like we could, maybe there was a little bit more information that they could look on this, but I think that based on the site plan where the pole is located, it could remain. I don't know if there's, oh, can you hear me?
Well, I would hate.
Not allowing me.
Sorry, go
No,
on.
we hear you. We hear you. You are unmuted. Thank you. Yeah, hoping to miss the pole is another matter. Relocating the pole is not within the scope of this project, and that would cause a grant of location and connections with the utility company. So hopefully your site plan accurately shows the location of the driveway that will not interfere with the location.
I believe.
Sure, I mean, on here, it looks like it would not interrupt it on the plan.
My belief is that it is not actually on our property line, it's actually on the Chase, 15 Chase side, so I think we won't miss it.
I hope so.
Thank you.
I promise.
Any other members of the committee who have a question or comment? Councilor Downs, I'm just wondering if we haven't heard from you, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I agree with Councilor Lubovitz. This looks like a lovely project and I hope it goes forward.
Councilor Lubovitz.
I just wondered if the driveway could be porous as opposed to
That's my hope,
impervious?
yes.
Okay. Can't be required, but preferred.
Me too.
Great. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to
Oh,
move-
we'd like to hear from the public, sorry. I forgot to ask. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment or ask questions? And I forgot that because I didn't see any yellow hands up there and there's nobody else in this room. Nope,
So I'd like to
Okay.
move to close the public hearing.
so moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And,
I'd like to move to approve the project.
great. Kat, let's see findings and conditions, please.
Yes, for findings, we have the proposed alterations of the non-conforming side setback and open space are not substantially more detrimental than the existing structure is to the neighborhood because the project adheres to other applicable dimensional regulations such as floor area ratio and height. And the conditions would be our standard conditions for plan referencing, building permit, and occupancy.
Great, thank you very much. We'll take a vote on this.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell, Counselor Kelly,
Aye?
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Great.
Come by anytime.
We'll look forward to driving by when it's
Next
done.
month.
The next item is number 290-24, which is a request to vertically extend the non-conforming front setbacks at 224 Adams Ave. Kat, I think that's you again? From planning?
Yes, one moment, sorry, I had the wrong one open. Okay, Kat Kemet again. This is petition number 290-24, a special permit for 224 Adams Avenue. The petitioners seek to construct a second story to the existing dwelling, increasing from 1.5 stories to 2 stories. Because the house is on a corner lot, it is subject to 2 front setbacks. And this will vertically extend the non-conforming front setbacks on both Adams Avenue and on Howard Street, requiring a special permit. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the proposed extensions of the non-conforming setbacks from Adams Ave and Howard Street are substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. The parcel is located in the single residence 3 zone at the corner of Adams Ave and Howard Street. Most of this area is zoned single residence 3, with the exception of the nearby Franklin School, which is zoned for public use, and the neighborhood is primarily residential in character. The site has a 5,309 square foot lot, which is improved with a 1.5 story house. The lot is undersized because 7,000 square feet is required by right. Both front setbacks are non-conforming with a 23.3 foot setback from Adams Ave and a 14.8 foot setback from Howard Street, where a 25 foot setback is required for both of those. The petitioner is seeking to add a full second story to the house, where there is currently 1.5 stories and up to 2.5 stories would be allowed by right. The addition will be within the footprint of the existing home, with the exception of a small overhang that will extend over the rear of the building. The setbacks from Howard Street and Adams Ave will remain the same, but because the setbacks will be extended vertically, it does need relief. The project doesn't need relief for open space, maximum lot coverage, or FAR. FAR is proposed at 0.33, where the existing FAR is 0.27 and up to 0.48 would be allowed by right. And the gross floor area will increase from 1,434 square feet to 1,756 square feet. So this is the front of the dwelling with the existing on the left and proposed on the right. The height will increase from 22.2 feet to 29.5 feet, where up to 36 feet would be allowed by right. This is the side elevation, or it's a front elevation, but the side facing Howard Street, the setback will remain the same. And you can see there is that small overhang at the rear, which will be visible. This is the side elevation from the left, presents much the same as the right with just that little overhang there. And this is the rear elevation. So overall, the department has no major concerns with the project and the extension of the non-conforming setbacks. The work proposed is within the footprint of the existing building, and the relief required is really limited only to the extension of an already existing nonconformity. And it could go up to 2.5 stories. So we think that by going up to 2, it will allow for a larger structure for what is a pretty small house while keeping the building in a similar scale with the other residential buildings in the neighborhood. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Is the petitioner here wanting to speak? Is that you, Ms. Wong?
Hello, hi.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I just want to say that, so we've been living in this house for over 20 years, and it's a very small home. And then my son is still living with me, and who knows when he's gonna move out, right? So we need a little bit more space. So we're hoping to add a second story to the house, so it makes it more livable, because we never really slept on the second floor ever since we bought the house, because it's just way too hot. So every summer we just sleep on the first floor. Like right now, like tonight we're gonna sleep on the first floor. So we just want to make the house more livable, more comfortable. Hopefully, yeah, that we can enjoy living here for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. When you,
Mini splits.
you can put in some air conditioning if you want. Let's open the public hearing. So the public hearing is now opened. We will see if any members of the public would like to speak to this. I see, was that a hand under text?
Mr. Suhu?
Okay. Alan Suho?
Hello, Alan Suho. I'm at 220 Adams Avenue. I am the abutter. I support this project.
Well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for coming to say that to us. Test 2, and when you get unmuted, please let us know your name and address.
Yes, my name is, I don't know why my picture's not up here. Something's wrong with this computer. Sorry. My name is Richard Simonelli, and I live at 236 Adams Avenue, which is the other corner of Howard Street. And I look right at the side of Jeannie's house. I'm not opposed to this project. I just wanted to make a couple of suggestions and comments, because today I took a walk through the neighborhood and I looked at some of the houses and got some thoughts. First of all, on the side of the house, I'm wondering if it'd be better if they put a small window up near the peak, much like Alan has on his house, which is on the other side, just to kind of break it up a little bit so it won't look like a big wall. That was one suggestion. What's that? Yeah, so I'd be looking at that wall, but you know, it's not just for me, it just would look nicer. The other thing is, I saw from the plans that the air conditioner is going to be located in the back of the property, which is good. I don't know if they're using a split type of air conditioner or a central air, but if they're going to be using, you know, anything that's running pipes, like a lot of these split air conditioners do, these installers run pipes up the side of the house, and when you're done, the place looks like some sort of industrial building. I would hope if they do that, they try to tuck the pipes in where they won't be as visible, and that they paint them to match the color of the building. There's some that aren't. I've seen some houses where they'll have one color wall and white pipes going up the side, and it just looks terrible. There's that, and I guess where the phone line, electrical lines come in, maybe something to try to hide those, because I guess these electrical boxes are starting to get bigger and bigger now as you upgrade the electricals, and they can get pretty pretty industrial looking. They had one more comment on there. Well, just in general, I hope they put nice windows in with nice architectural trim. I saw some nice stuff up on Grant Street where they put in some nice windows with really not fancy, but substantial trim on them. And it made the property look an awful lot nicer. I mean, someday they'll have to sell the property, so you want it to look as good as you can. Now's the time to put the money in it. Anything else that I had? I think that was pretty much it.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, you're welcome, Gene.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Those are some neighborly suggestions you can ponder over. Those are all out of the purview of the land use committee, but you can talk with your neighbor more about those.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? No, I don't see any. So we'll bring it into committee and have a discussion. Anybody within the committee?
It's your ward, so I'll move to close the public hearing. I think it's a fine project.
Yeah.
Very thoughtful, sounds like you're doing a great thing. Hope you succeed with it. So I'll move to close the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Let's hear from Councilor Downs, just in case
Oh, I'm sorry,
that does anything, and then we will close the public hearing. Councilor Downs.
I support closing the public hearing. I think this is a great project. I expect that with our new building code and stretch code, there will be additional insulation in the attic, and that with the air conditioning and mini splits will make the whole house much more comfortable. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. There is a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ms. Wong, I'll just say before we vote tonight, we're gonna hear the findings and conditions that this is exactly the kind of thing we like to see happen more and more in Newton, where particularly taking an existing small home, you've lived there for over 20 years, you're just trying to expand it still modestly to, 1,700 square feet. We generally love to see this kind of project, and we like people like you to stay in Newton, and just particularly stay in Ward 3 West Newton, which is where I live too.
And with that, Madam Chair, I'll move to approve.
Let's vote. Thank you, Councilor Lorraine. Oh, sorry, yes, findings and conditions. Yep.
Okay, for findings, we have the proposed alterations of the non-conforming front setbacks are not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure because the project adheres to other applicable dimensional regulations and the work is limited to the existing footprint. And standard conditions for plan referencing, building permit, and occupancy would apply.
Thank you very much. Now we'll take a vote.
Councilor Block?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
Councilor Farrow? Councilor Kelly?
Aye.
Councilor Leary?
Aye.
Councilor Lovovitz?
Aye.
Councilor Lucas?
Aye.
Councilor Laredo?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Good luck, Ms. Wong.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to your neighbors for their words.
Good luck.
Yes. Thank you.
The next item is number 289-24, which is a request to further extend non-conforming FAR at 29 Trowbridge Ave.
Okay. Oh, look at this one, Sam. Look at this house.
Wait, who's?
That's test 2.
Planning?
Okay. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. This is petition 289-24, a special permit for 29 Trowbridge Avenue. The petitioner proposes to construct a 2-story addition, which further extends the non-conforming floor area ratio, requiring special permit relief. In considering this request, the council should consider whether the proposed increase of the non-conforming FAR is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and if the proposed increase in the non-conforming FAR will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. The parcel is located in the single residence 2 zoning district on Trowbridge Ave. The neighborhood is primarily residential with mostly single-family homes. The zoning in the area includes SR2 on all the abutting properties, with some multi-residence zoning to the east and public use to the west at the end of the street where Newton North High is located. The petitioner proposes to demolish the existing detached garage and construct an addition at the rear and side of the property. The proposed addition increases the non-conforming FAR from 0.42 to 0.59, where the maximum allowed is 0.41. So that increase in the non-conforming FAR is the only relief needed here. Altogether, the addition will add 1,426 square feet in the basement, first and second stories. An existing walkway and part of the driveway will be removed to make room for the addition, and the driveway will be extended out towards the new garage. The impervious coverage on the lot will increase by 354 square feet, and open space will decrease from 72% to 65%, where a 50% minimum is required. So this is the front elevation with the existing left and proposed on the right. This is the elevation that will be most visible from the street. The addition will have living space and garage space on the first floor, while the second floor will be limited to living space only. And also included will be an attic in the addition, which does not reach the height threshold to be included in floor area ratio. This is the elevation for the right side of the building, existing on the left, proposed on the right. The setback will decrease from 23.3 feet to 8.1 feet, but no relief is needed because the minimum required is 7.5 feet. This is the rear. The rear setback will decrease from 36.1 feet to 29.7 feet. No relief is needed there because the minimum required is 15 feet. And this is the left side elevation. No changes to this setback, but the work at the rear will be a little bit visible there towards the back. Overall, the department is not concerned with the project as proposed. The design does not further reduce the non-conforming front setback, and much of the massing will be towards the rear of the dwelling and thus not visible from the public way. And several dwellings in this neighborhood have similar nonconformities and are built to a comparable size and scale to what is proposed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Is there someone here from the petitioner who would like to talk or show us anything? I see Mr. Mayor. Is it you? You would like to do a little presentation for us? Welcome.
I'm happy to chime in as well. We're the homeowners. I'm Caroline Lamb-O'Terry, and this is my husband, Rob O'Terry. Alan is here with us, of course, as well. I guess maybe I'll just say a couple of quick things. We've owned our home for 2 years now, and as we understand it, we're just the fourth family to own it since it was built in 1890, and that means a great deal to us. But it was last updated in 1988, so it's in need of some improvements, and we hope to receive approval to do so it can stay our family home for a long time in the future. We're proud of the plan we worked on with that. We believe it stays true to the style and of the home and the street and neighborhood. And lastly, I'll just say that we've shared those plans with all of the residents on our street, as well as our backyard neighbor, and have heard support. Most notably, our immediately adjacent neighbors to the left, right, across the street, and behind us have all expressed their support for our project. So thanks for the time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lamb-O'Terry. Mr. Mayor, do you want to do a presentation?
I don't have a presentation because everything was done, but just wanted to point out if there's any question on the front elevation, just because when you look at the actual elevation, it looks like it's a much bigger thing, but the garage is set back significantly. And also just FAR, because of the gambrel roof, we were, the nature of the structure itself is such that you count all the third floor, and it's it set us. It's the numbers are high, but that's also because of the architecture that's there, and we're trying to keep it. And we went before historic, and that was a breeze, thankfully, and we like to as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much for being available. Ms. Lamo, Terry, we're very happy to hear that you reached out to the neighbors. We love to hear that that has already happened. We will now open the public hearing. Public hearing is open, and wondering if there are any members of the public or any of those neighbors or others who would like to speak. I don't see any, and so we will hear from the Land Use Committee. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. This looks like a fine project. It's nice to see that the O'Terrys reached out to all the neighbors and they are okay with it. So I am okay with it, and when ready, I will make a motion to close the public hearing and move for approval.
Great, Councilor Laredo.
Great project, let's vote it.
Yes. So moved. Let's, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. And we have a motion to approve, so let's see the findings and the conditions.
For findings, the proposed expanded structure with an increased non-conforming floor area ratio of 0.59, where 0.41 is the maximum allowed by right, is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures, given there are other dwellings with comparable size and scale in the neighborhood. 2, the proposed increase of the non-conforming FAR will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure to the neighborhood because the massing is focused towards the rear of the dwelling, mitigating the visual impact from the street. And standard conditions for plan referencing, occupancy, and building permit would apply.
Thank you. We'll take a vote on it now.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow, Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for explaining why the FAR seemed a little high, and it's a lovely design.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project. Our final item of the night is number 257-24. It's a request to amend special permit number 176-19, so we've already seen this project actually a couple times, to allow for changes to the approved site plan for additional relief to allow a garage exceeding 700 square feet to exceed FAR and retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height at 1188 Chestnut Street. Planning?
Yes, let me just share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is petition number 257-24 at 1188 Chestnut Street. Just to review the zoning relief, this is a request to amend special permit 176-19 to allow changes to the approved site plan and to allow additional relief for a garage exceeding 700 square feet to exceed FAR and a retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height. So I'll just briefly review the project for a refresher on the history behind this proposal, which is also outlined in the zoning and planning memos. In 2019, a special permit was granted to allow the construction of a new single-family dwelling with associated zoning relief. In 2022, there were changes to the special permit approved site plan, which were approved through consistency review in 2022, and at that time supported by the Land Use Committee. In 2024, there were further additional changes to the approved plan, which occurred during construction and were found at this stage of occupancy review. And so in reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed amendments, which require relief that the proposed garage in excess of 700 square feet will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The proposed garage will not create a nuisance or hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to the street is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. The increase in FAR is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And the new retaining wall ordinance findings that the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use, and that the lot could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining walls. The proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public, and that the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a subject property to be reasonably utilized. And so this is just an update on some of the things that have happened on the project since the Land Use Committee hearing on June 18th. So planning staff followed up with the neighbor that had concerns about retaining walls on the side property line and followed up with them on the process for requesting code enforcement. The associate city engineer wrote an engineering memorandum that's attached to the memo with recommendations and included a site visit summary. The petitioner provided a site plan stamped by a professional engineer, and the petitioner also trimmed the tree at the southwestern corner of the site to comply with the original special permit conditions after planning staff notified them about that. So just a refresher on the proposed site plan. This is actually the as-built as well, since this has already been constructed. So just highlighting the areas that require the additional relief, including the retaining wall along the western boundary of the site where there is a walkway. So that's over here. And then the 2 retaining walls that are approximately 4 feet in height. These are located in this location. There's one here and one here, and they're primarily to retain the patio in the rear of the property. And this is the 1-story garage, the location of the 1-story garage that is just over 900 square feet and requires the relief. So just here showing the just elevations of the property. Here it is from the front. These are the elevations from the east and the west sides. And this is the rear elevation from the north. And so planning, at the request of the Land Use Committee to further kind of go into detail on each of the relief needed and recommendations from planning after reviewing the separate relief that was required for each of the items. So so basically there were many changes during construction of the project that occurred that were not on the special permit approved plan from 2019. Some of the changes were approved during the consistency ruling, but some of the changes to the site that were found during the stage of occupancy, such as the FAR garage and retaining walls over 4 feet. So these are the items that we will go into further detail here. So the garage, this was approved, the site plan was approved in 2019 with the garage on Chestnut Street. And the garage was located within the front yard setback, which extends a prior nonconformity. So the relief is really for the expanded garage that's over 700 square feet. That is 900 square feet for 3 cars. The original special permit was for a garage of approximately 600 square feet. So planning did not originally recommend the garage at this location due to safety challenges backing in and out of the driveway, and still does not recommend the extension or the addition of this garage for 3 parking spaces. And this is something that was noted in the prior Land Use Committee meeting on this, with safety challenges of vehicles backing in and out, especially in a tandem configuration within the garage. So the next item is the retaining walls. So the engineering did conduct a site visit and provided recommendations in their engineering memo. they have found that on visual inspection, the retaining walls seem to be stable, and they did not see any evidence of washout. Planning has incorporated the conditions from engineering in the proposed council order related to the retaining walls. Should the petition be approved, planning does defer to engineering on construction, drainage, and stability of the walls. Likely does not have specific issues with the retaining walls of 4 feet in height, as they were changes likely needed during construction and during the kind of responding to on the ground changes during construction. And so for the FAR, this is the last relief that's needed. And that was a fairly minimal change of FAR from 0.56, where 0.57 is requested, and planning did not have specific concerns with this request. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval. Is there someone here from the petitioner owner who would like to speak to this? Carlos?
Yes, we hear.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Patricia Ferreira. I am the owner, one of the owners. Carlos, my husband. We do not have a presentation today. We're just here to answer any questions that you may have. I think the presentation done by Alisa was pretty thorough. So just here to answer any questions or hear any comments. Thank you.
Okay,
Want to talk about the garage?
Excuse me?
You want to mention about the garage?
Yes, I mean, regarding the garage issue that seems to be like from the 700, like that was approved to 900. Currently, we only use the garage for one car. And I mean, there is the layout there is, I mean, we can easily build a wall to separate, to reduce like to it would actually be a one-car garage. We have no problems with changing that and building a wall to separate that. Actually, the way that the garage lays out today, I mean, we use that more as a storage anyway.
Oh, thank you for offering that, Mr. Ferrer. I was thinking the same thing would have been a suggestion I would have made later and said you can gain an official storage space or work area if you do that. But thank you for sticking around in case there are any questions. I want to make a note to everybody that the public hearing is still open on this. We didn't close it before, so I wonder if there are any members of the public who would like to speak. Ms. Belville?
Okay, just trying to unmute myself. I spoke in opposition to this project the last time it came before as another example of ask forgiveness versus permission. And this has been a really interesting land use committee meeting. It's been actually encouraging because even though we were sandwiched between two ask forgiveness versus permission projects, we had 4 really great projects that came before this commission tonight. And I'm really encouraged when I see all these great homes, modest homes that are being renovated versus torn down. So again, I'm not supportive of this, but overall, I think that there's been some great projects that have come before this commission tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Belville. We noticed that too. Let's just see if there's anyone else from the public and then we will take it into the committee. I think not. So Councilor Lobovitz, I think you had your hand up.
Okay, I just wondered if we could be more explicit about the safety concern. I can't recall exactly. I know it was cars exiting from the garage onto the street, I'm assuming. But what
Yes.
exactly is the safety concern?
It's
Can you
very
hear that again?
close, it's within the setback. So there's not a lot of room. It's on a corner, so the sight lines are very difficult if there are pedestrians or other cars going by, if you're backing out of that garage, which is why I mentioned that I appreciate the petitioner offering to make the garage smaller and to, partition it off on the inside so there are not 3 cars trying to back out of that garage. So that is the issue, and that's due to where it's located on the site.
And if I recall, the driveway is around 15 feet long. Or so.
Yeah,
I mean,
less
within a
than one
couple
car
inches.
could be parked there, yes.
So it could overrun the sidewalk.
Yes, if there was
The car
another
would
car parked
park
there,
there.
it would
Yes.
overrun the sidewalk. So that was the concern that has been voiced consistently with this project.
And my other question was, I know engineering sort of signed off, but they also had some concerns. Can we hear exactly what those concerns were, or what the changes they're recommending would be in the walls?
That was in our packet, but Ms. Planning, would you like to quickly reiterate the findings from John Daglian's report, which I read as mostly positive, that some of the concerns we had were not existent or negligible, but if there were any recommendations in that, could you highlight those for us?
Sure. So, his memo notes that the site and abutting properties look stable and there was no evidence of washout or unstable slopes. He does request that the applicant's engineer, submit a written and stamped affidavit to ISD certifying that the walls over 4 feet in height were designed and constructed in accordance with the manufacturer's design requirements and specifications. He had several photos from the site visit, which he documented in his memo. And then he also requested that a number of items be submitted as part of the as-built site plan. And that would be to the building permit application. And so the applicant should be aware that they will have to submit their site plan as part of their building application to be approved by engineering with the notes that John Daglian has put in the memo.
So I believe I heard you say before, Ms. Sandoval, that those requirements will be put into the conditions as part of the special permit that you incorporate?
Well, there is there will be one general condition that will capture all of those notes, but it's quite extensive, so I think we'll just have one condition that covers that.
That's great, thank you.
So if I could just finish.
Please do.
I wasn't here for the special permit approval, I wasn't here for the consistency, so I would love to hear from people who were, and this just seems to be so far from the original plan and the spirit of the rulings of this committee, that unless I hear something quite different, I'm inclined to not approve the amendment. Thank you.
4 of us were on this committee when this first came to us, and I'm sure you can notice Councilor Lucas, Councilor Laredo, Councilor Downs, and myself were all here for all of it, so you can hear from any of us who want to speak to that, but good questions, thank you very much. Councilor Laredo?
So, with the change in the garage, which I fully support, I think I'm comfortable with this, and I'll explain why. This is a difficult site. It was a difficult site when we approved it several years ago, just because of the nature of the curve there. I think in particular, sight lines were a concern. I'm not as troubled by these types of, where I'm troubled by the retaining walls more is when they cause runoff or improper stormwater runoff onto other properties. The neighbor to the right, I think it was the right, if I'm not mistaken. What I read in the memo was planning was very clear with giving her guidance as to what relief she could have via code enforcement. And I think that's critical, because if there's a problem here, we want code enforcement to deal with it. But if Mr. Daglian said that the retaining walls are appropriate, it seems to me it's a reasonable solution for a difficult problem. And we do not give any relief to the garage, which I think is critical. You know, I would be comfortable with that. This is not a perfect project. Obviously, when we see projects come in with multiple iterations, that gives us cause for concern. But it is a difficult site. So that's my thought process there, and others can chime in, disagree, whatever. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Lucas.
Thank you. So the last time we were here, I said that the relief for the FAR was fine. It's only over by 0.01, so I'm okay with that. The garage, planning has recommended a solution to bring the garage down under 700 square feet, and I believe the petitioners said at the last public hearing that they would agree to put up a wall or a partition. Is that correct? Can you just confirm that, please?
I think you said.
You think they said that?
You said that
Yes.
just now.
They just said it just
Yes,
now? Okay.
yes.
You want me to say, yeah, we are, you know, we have no problem putting a wall there and making that into storage.
Okay.
I don't know if you're asking me, sorry.
Yeah, I was, yeah, thank you, but I was reminded that you said it earlier tonight. Retaining walls, that's the last piece of zoning relief that we're talking about. And I do share Councilor Laredo's concern about the runoff and erosion on other people's properties. But in the memo from the city engineer, he writes, I performed a site visit, the proposed improvements have been completed. The site and abutting properties look stable and there was no evidence of any washout or unstable slopes. So I think from us here on the land use committee, I think that satisfies us. And I know Mr. Temple at the last public hearing said that potential erosion and runoff is not in our purview. That's done through inspection services and a zoning enforcement request. So I am okay to approve this petition that is in front of us. That's all.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Downs?
I'm happy to wait until everyone else has spoken and then wrap up.
Your hand has been up, so I thought I'd go to you next. We'll come back to you as the
Thanks.
word. Thank you. Counselor Block.
Well, I remain troubled by the neighbor's testimony last time and the assertion which she made about stormwater runoff and the effect that it had on her property. I understand the engineering report, but I also understand that sometimes engineering reports are not correct. And I just don't know what to do about this uncertainty which I have. I appreciate Councilor Lucas, sort of the logic that you went through. I follow it entirely. And I understand engineering has its role and that we're not here to second guess the role, but we also have to rely on the accuracy of professional reports, all sorts of professional reports. And lately, there've been a number of situations in which we've after the fact realized that there were inconsistencies. So what does that do with our decision-making process? So that worries me, just as a general matter and in this particular case. So I just thought I'd share all of that with the rest of you.
Thank you, Councilor Block. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I clearly remember the discussion we had about a month ago, I think, on this project. We went into quite a bit of detail. I was most concerned about the stormwater runoff, the impacts on that neighbor. At this point, I feel like with Mr. Daglian's report that I'm satisfied that's not going to be a problem. That was my main concern. I would like to, this isn't a discussion for now, but figure out how we can catch these kinds of projects earlier in the process, before they're built. I know Ms. Bellwill had talked about, you know, begging for forgiveness later, and I'm very sympathetic to that. It is frustrating. But to not allow these homeowners to live in their property is concerning to me as well. So, but I'm gonna weigh in on approval at this point, because my biggest concern is satisfied here, but I'm not really happy with the process, and that's another discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Councilor Farrell, I'm happy to see your hand up. If you're there. Maybe the hand is just up. Okay, well, we'll come back to you if you really are there, Councilor Farrell, and would like to speak. Ms. Belleville, I had already asked for public comment. I must have missed you where you raised your hand light, but I'm happy to hear from you now before we go back to Councilor Downs.
Okay, I just had to be unmuted. Thank you. No, you did hear from me, and I appreciate you hearing from me a second time. The idea of like this 3-car garage and the idea of putting in a partition so it's not really a 3-car garage, why wouldn't it just be, because a partition can be changed, owners change, the special permit isn't tied to the owner, it's tied to the property. So I feel like it would be a better solution to just limit them to a 2-car garage. And I may be mistaken, but I thought the last time this came before the committee that the garage bled into the front setback. Do I have that wrong?
No, you're correct. It does.
And so I specifically recall commenting about a request that came before this committee on Edinburgh Street where the folks had no parking, and you declined that. And so I don't really feel like, from a consistency perspective, this committee should approve it's certainly a 3-car garage, but even a 2-car garage that encroaches on the setback, given the positions that you've had on Edinburgh Street and other projects. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Belleville. Councilor Downs.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear my colleagues are generally okay with the garage with some issues around coming in for forgiveness rather than for permission in the first place. I understand that. I'm sympathetic to it. I am hardly a fan of garages and extra storage, but let me remind you, this is a tandem. It's going to be really hard to use. I have a tandem driveway, and even with driveway with lots of forgiveness on either side is tough to use. And I doubt this will actually be used very often for an additional car and parking. That said, if the petitioner is willing to put in the wall in order to get our approval, I say, let him do it. I'd like to also just say, I think that I pushed the engineering department and John Daglian on the finding of his. I pushed him particularly to look at some of the pictures that we had gotten from the neighbor. He stuck with his opinion, which I think, at some point you have to trust your own experts. Otherwise, why are we hiring them? So I'm going to move to close the public hearing and move approval.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. I don't think we have another member of the public, though I do see the owner has her hand up again, and we have some more in committee, some more members of the committee, including myself, who would like to speak. But look, Ms. Ferreira, do you want to say something right now?
Yeah, I just want to mention something quickly, because everybody keeps saying about the garage that we just decided, like, without asking anybody to do the way we did. But if you go back to the first time that we went for consistency ruling, I think in 2022, the plans that were approved, even by ISD, my building permit, the one is stamped, it shows the garage exactly how it is now. We didn't have the wall, we didn't make any like small rooms down there, so it was open, was exactly what we built. So we did not have the intention of, having a 3-car garage, or we decided to do that halfway. That was the plan that was stamped and approved. It was overseen on our side, on your side, on everybody, but it was not deceiving. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we have to retread that ground, but it might be helpful for some people to have heard that, so thank you very much. As I recall also, don't you have access to parking up on the street behind you as well, on Indiana Terrace? So
Yeah,
there's
so
the opportunity.
nowadays, in reality, what happens is I park in the garage downstairs. Even for 2 cars, it's kind of narrow and tight. So in reality, we have 1 car parked there, and Carlos, he parks on Indiana Court. We have a driveway on the back.
Yes.
So that's what happens, like, in reality, I understand down the road, maybe when we sell the house, somebody's gonna try to put 3 cars there. So I don't know. That's why we are willing to close the back part so we can use only as a storage, and there's no room for cars to go there if they want to, even though it's very narrow. So we are willing to work with that, but yeah, we did not try to deceive anybody. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I don't think you are being accused of that, but we appreciate the offer to reduce the size of the garage, and I'm pretty sure that's gonna come as one of the suggestions for approval of this, but thank you again very much. All right, now I think we can close the public hearing.
I'm moving to close the public hearing.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's see the findings and conditions. Oh, wait, I did want to say something, and so did Councilor Lobovitz, I'm sorry. I very much appreciate what Councilors Laredo and Lucas walked through. That was exactly my thought process too. I think the FAR change is very minimal. I think the retaining walls, which is not an appearance that many of us prefer, but that's not really what's before us or within our domain. I feel I must have confidence in the engineering report that John Daglian prepared, because as somebody had mentioned, we do need to have some confidence in our professionals. So I too was concerned last time we met by the neighbor's verbal description and photographs of what she perceived as runoff on her property. Mr. Daglian doesn't see that at all. I hope it's true. I believe it's true. The only issue I do have is with the garage situation, with more too big, more cars than needed, and the reason I'm concerned about that is the backing out safety issue. So I very much appreciate the petitioners being willing to build a wall, not just even a partition, but a wall inside the garage to portion that off and make the actual garage be under 700 square feet. They said 600. I will leave it to you. As long as it's under 7, it's fine, and that is really my only concern over all of this. Councilor Lobovitz, did you?
I just had a question.
Go ahead.
So, this amendment was filed because the occupancy permit was denied. Is that correct?
There were questions raised at our last meeting in mid to late June, that needed to be answered before we would move forward. The questions were around the retaining wall and around the garage, which is why this new memo was created.
But those questions were raised because of a question about an occupancy permit. Is that correct?
Some of it
I'm
was
trying to get the sequence
the
here.
inspection for the occupancy permit showed some discrepancies. Questions were raised by the public, by neighbors, by the committee. It's been another month since then to try and address those.
Thank you.
But the owners are living there now.
Yes.
Temporary.
I think we had temporary.
You can
Right,
get it,
right,
yeah,
right,
yes.
okay. So that's.
They were living there at our June meeting, I believe.
Yes, right,
Mhm.
right. I don't know if that's what you were puzzled by. Oh,
No,
okay.
not about that. Thank you.
Councilor Lucas, did you have something else?
No,
too? Anyone else?
I'm all set.
Okay. Councilor Downs, I believe you made a motion, or you were ready to
Yeah.
make?
I moved approval.
Let's take a look at the findings and see how those conditions read to incorporate some of the things we've just been talking about.
Okay. Okay, let me just go to the findings. So these are the findings. One, the proposed extension of the non-conforming front setback is not substantially more detrimental than the existing setback is to the neighborhood because the proposed garage is set farther back from the street than the existing garage, improving prior existing conditions. Just to note, this is incorporating the findings from the first special permit. So that's why that reads that way.
Madam Chair, I think, do we need to separate out the relief that is being granted and is being withheld? Because it sounds like the garage relief was not being approved. So it sounds like we may need to parse
Well,
out the amendment.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to see
Yeah.
in the conditions.
Yeah, I was thinking that the first two findings would be fine. And then the third and fourth findings would the fourth finding would probably need to be struck if that relief is not being granted for the over 700 square foot garage.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So striking that number 4, and then 5 is the proposed garage will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians as is set back from the street compared to the existing garage. Again, that was the prior existing garage that was located there. And 6, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. 7, the increase in FAR is not substantially more detrimental than the existing structure is to the neighborhood. It only represents a small increase in the allowable FAR. 8, the lot presents challenging topography with an existing steep grade of the site, which limits the use of the property such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining walls over 4 feet in height. And 9, the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property to the neighborhood or the public because of the location of the property in a hilly area along Chestnut Street where the use of retaining walls is common along this street. And then, so let's see. Yes, and then 10, the proposed retaining walls over 4 feet in height allow this lot to be reasonably utilized because of the steep grade of the existing site. And the retaining walls over 4 feet in height allow for the use of the outdoor space in the rear yard to be utilized. So for conditions, the standard plan referencing condition, standard building permit condition, standard occupancy condition, and with the addition that the petitioner needs to file with ISC and the Department of Engineering the affidavit about the walls that they have been constructed according to the manufacturer's standards, and then the ongoing condition regarding the maintenance of the landscaping and the tree at the western boundary. And in addition to this, just to note to the petitioner, they will have to update their plans for engineering review, since engineering will need to review and approve the plans with the added notations that they required in the memo.
And in conditions, shouldn't we put in that they need to reduce the size of the garage to under 700 square feet as a condition? Or do you?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I think because you're not granting that relief, they
Okay.
would need to show compliance with the zoning.
Okay, thank you. perfect.
I have a question as it relates to the garage. And just because the special permit lies with the property, not the owner, and they have a parking stall in the rear on Indiana Terrace, and you can fit one car, only one car in the garage, do we need a condition that says only one car can be parked in the garage?
I mean, I think that, oh, go ahead.
First of all, on how you enforce
Yeah,
that,
right.
and second, I suppose you could have two very, the next homeowner could have two
Minis.
Mini
Yeah.
Coopers or whatever,
Small
small
cars.
cars that would fit.
Yeah.
The big SUV, probably not so much.
Alright, okay.
I would
asking.
personally, for what it's worth,
Yeah.
I would hesitate to do that.
I thought of it too, and I
Yeah.
thought about enforcement, and I thought about size of cars, and I couldn't see how we can do it.
Okay.
I would,
Well, yeah, but
before we take the
we
vote
have
though,
that neighbor, you
I
have no
would just
problem.
like to say that I join in many of my colleagues and members of the public, including Ms. Belleville, saying I don't like having to give forgiveness. So for any potential petitioners listening tonight, please try to build what's been approved. Any other comments before we vote on this? Let's take a vote.
Counselor Block,
I'm going to abstain.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrow, Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Abstain.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Great.
And we're done.
Good job.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.